I run a company called Rolling Arrays, which is in the 8th year. And that was when I came to Singapore in 2008. And from a work that we do is purely because I feel that HR is something which is my passion. And I have been doing it for the last 10 years. Earlier in the capacity of an architect, and then basically from a capacity of what we can contribute to the industry in terms of people improvement and making it a profit center and not cost center, which is the biggest belief actually, and which is the biggest problem of we as HR leaders actually, to make it as a decision-making point to the business, to the leaders actually, who feel that investment in HR is something which cannot be measured. And I feel that you can measure it only through analytics. And analytics is something which is based on good data. And if we don't have good data, there is no way we buy the best of the best systems in the world, which can generate the best of the best views for analytics, but it doesn't happen. When I say everybody can invent, we sit together for about 10 minutes and think how we can potentially solve this problem. Look at it, what has Uber has done. Typically, I would say it is not a great invention. It is a very simple pain problem solution that we bring together whatever elements of taxis together, and then everybody has access to it. I don't think basically this is a great idea that they have operationalized. Probably all of us might have it, but then it basically happened through execution. So I would say that invention comes from a pain problem, and if we look at the pain problem, all of us can invent. What it means is, we as HR leaders, when we have a problem in our organizations, and we want to streamline our HR process, we want to have the best HR analytics system, we want to have the best matrix, how can we make it happen? We have to think through, and rather than basically just running towards what the industry is doing, what everybody is doing, we have to look at it that what are the elements that basically we can put together, invent and go from there. It might be very trivial. We might feel that, oh, so what? This is not a great idea that is coming onto it. But probably that idea that comes onto us when we take a step back and invent is probably what can bring an HR transformation in our company. And trust me, I personally believe in it, and I have seen in my last 10 years of interaction with different HR leaders that when they thought about it, it really happened. It could be from a very small perspective of employee engagement where they do a survey and what is the matrix they could come out of it. But I would say that every single time we are doing anything to make our organization better, to make the HR analytics key matrix good, we just basically have to think about what is the outcome that I am going to achieve for my business. And if we can always remember that, so what? This particular project that we are undertaking, what is this project all about, and what this project will bring a benefit to the leaders of this organization, is where I feel that every time you have this argument, you can always take a budget, you can always make an impact to the organization, and then HR will be seen as the profit center and not a cost center. If you look at it, very simple example, every organization is run by people, and HR manages the people. That means we are the ones who sell, we are the ones who operate, we are the ones who decide, we are the ones who maintain, we are the ones who do everything for the organization. That means the organization runs on people, and that is everything for the organization. And if we want to make it profitable, it is the people who will make it profitable. How can it be a cost center? It has to be a profit center. And that's what basically, if we can, if we are convicted about it, then every now and then in all our meetings with the decision makers of the organization, we can make them believe in it, is what probably we can actually bring about an HR transformation. In terms of HR analytics, I feel that I mentioned about good data. When I say good data, it means how are we generating the data in our organizations, which is happening over a period of few years, that we can use into our HR analytics. And it comes from end users. When I say end users, I take the first element of it, which is the people aspect of an organization. And people are segregated into three sections. One, I call it basically the end users. We say the employees and the managers, who got who are typically the clients of HR from an organization perspective. The second element is the HR leaders, which is a team of business partners, which is a team of HR managers, HR executives, the CHROs, and who are responsible in overall defining the HR department of the company, and of course, who are responsible for HR transformation. And the third element is the business, which is the decision makers, who will actually make it happen. Now, the business wants, if they look at the HR departments, that I want high profitability, so that means my bottom line should look good. The HR wants happy people and great HR analytics. And the end users, the employees and the managers want, what is it when you make a project happen, what is in this particular project for me? And I think if we can look at that, probably I would say that will be our part of Invention as HR leaders, that what is it that I'm giving to my employees and the managers so that I can, in the end, the outcome, all of us know that we need good data for HR analytics. So that what is it basically that I have to extract from the end users, and what is it that I can give back to the end users so that they are able to generate the employee data. I give you an example. I was talking to one of the HR leaders recently last week, and they mentioned my people log into the performance. It's a very cliche example, but I think we can extend to it and then we can invent from it. My people log into the performance management system only once in a year, and when they are forced to do it. Imagine if they are logging into the performance management system once in a year. Can you imagine HR analytics, one matrix? I want to know as a CEO of the company, why are my people leaving? Attrition. So I have high attrition. So I get it from the analytics perspective, very easy. This is a very concrete analytics. High attrition, I have a 25% attrition. Now I want to know exactly which department is leaving and what is the maximum number of people leaving. Now, the only way I can fix it, I have got a lot of HR analytics, but the only way I can make an impact to the organization is, why is my financial department top leaders in the last 5 years leaving? Did let's say 2015, 2010, was it different? 11, was it different? 12, was it different? Is it a trend, or is it completely ad hoc? And then I will drill down and find out in 10 what happened, in 11 what happened, in 12 what happened, in 13 what happened. Now, if I am doing that from a matrix perspective, if people are logging into the system once, let's look at it from a pain problem, how we can address it. They're logging into the system once, they've got whatever work that they have, and they've got 10 minutes, and they enter whatever they want to enter. That data is not a good data. And typically, if I take an example of it and I make a decision of it, it is absolutely a wrong data. And I finally decide as a CEO or as a leader that my people are leaving because their salaries are not great. And actually, they were leaving probably because of some other reason, which could be practically generated only when there is a regular interaction between the employee and the manager. And I think that's the key for it. So if I say that there is a regular interaction between the employee and the manager, I would simply say that we are giving a system where employees feel that they're going to be benefited and the managers feel that they're going to be benefited. How they will be benefited? If we are simplifying their day-to-day job. Okay, coming back to the point that I was discussing, that the employees and the managers should feel that they are getting benefited. When will they feel that they are getting benefited? When we make their work easier. How do you think you can, let's take an example of a manager now. How do you think you can make the work of a manager easier? A manager is given a task, or let's take an example of a project manager, and he's basically running a project and he's responsible for getting the work done out of 5 people who are reporting to him. And those 5 people basically are having competencies basically which are defined, which he knows basically what they are up to do it. Now, if he is able to track everybody's competency on a simple daily basis. Again, sounds very cliche, sounds very trivial, that of course my team member is supposed to be having this particular competency and he's supposed to do it. However, there is, look at it from a year perspective. We are saying basically that we are going day by day, and they'll be going week by week, month by month. But typically the entire activity set that an employee does to the manager is what is in his mind every time. And that's what he says, I am busy because I am delivering my work. Now, he's delivering his work through the people, and those people basically are carrying out activities. So imagine if we are making sure that the system or the process, it is defined in such a manner that the manager is able to do a basic analysis, a basic feedback mechanism with the employee to be able to gather the activities that he's doing on a daily basis. And if I simplify it, let's say I give it a word that, again, very common word, competency gap analysis, which basically everybody knows about it, and which I would say forms the key matrix of HR analytics. Competency gap analysis. What can he do about it? Again, we give a very difficult system and he says, I'm doing my job. I can't really basically spend time. Again, you have given me a performance management system and you have given me another competency gap analysis system. Now, what as leaders basically we need to simplify it is, we define a process which we know that actually it will take very, very minimal time for the manager to invest time, and it will really make sense for it. We communicate to the manager that if at all you follow this particular process, what is going to be the benefit that you will get, and how on earth basically your job gets simplified. So I would say basically that 5 people report to him. He's got a simple process where we have defined that there are 5 activities that person is going to do, which are basic competencies. We do not create an overwhelming competency framework, which is where probably we get ourselves drowned in. We create we limit 5 competencies from a behavioral and a technical standpoint, and he is giving an absolute rating. We're talking about performance management off, performance management off. Trust me, nobody can actually do performance management off, because then nobody basically will be able to measure anything, and HR analytics will not have any meaning. So basically I come back to the point that if we are saying there are minimal competency points that we are giving, and then there is an absolute rating defined on it, and the manager and employee can have a feedback mechanism. If employee does not do feedback, that means there is something wrong. And if he is having busy schedule, he would probably do it once in a month. Imagine that at the year end, if you're doing this infographic data, which is the basis of your performance management, rather than the manager basically goes into it and gives an absolute rating at the year end. So I'm giving you an example of how a simplified competency gap analysis instead of a performance management, again, it is a performance management process, but we are simplifying it. We are thinking from a perspective, employee doesn't get overwhelmed with the work, manager doesn't get overwhelmed with the work. We weave that particular problem statement into their work stream, and they are able to generate that particular data, which we will use as an HR analytics to measure the productivity of every single employee and every single manager. So when the manager basically goes to his supervisor, he will talk about it and say that, okay, I do not have a good team, that is why I could not deliver. Then the data basically at the end, which is basically coming from the grassroots level, can be used actually to generate that discussion. And that discussion is not about performance management. It is a discussion when a project is not on time, on budget, and that data basically gets meaningfully used. And if you look at it, this particular discussion, this particular meeting is an operational meeting. It is not an HR meeting. But the HR is able to give that data to that particular meeting. That's where we say that we increase the employee productivity, and that's where we say that we are actually the profit center, not our cost center. And that's where we say that we are the ones who do everything. Now again, when we say we are the ones, we take pride as HR leaders that we are running the human capital of the company. But again, what is the contribution that we are making to the main business and the main leaders? And that's where the leaders will feel that I want to give more budget to my HR leaders so that they are able to create that particular matrix. And again, unless and until they know what are we making for them, how are we making for them, they will never give it. So rather than basically thinking about that we need to have a good budget, and basically we have this problem statement of getting the budget or explaining it, or my employees are not using the system, my manager is not using the system, we just basically have to think through that, how can I make it simplified, and how can I make them use the system? And the only thing that on our mind as the stalwarts of HR analytics is that generating good data. I give this example, honestly speaking, if I gave an example of the Invention in the beginning, I keep telling to my team actually, and when we are talking to our customers, that you ask us basically, give us the insights of the industry. I tell you that I start as a template and give you an example. Honestly speaking, you can give me a better insight of the industry. Because invention will come from the pain problem. You are running a company and the problems are there. I give you an example of performance management. You can actually bring this to another example and another example, and all of them are the key in pain problems. And you have to basically just generate a simple process that will work in your organization. Okay, at this point, I want to take a break and ask, do you think that from an HR analytics perspective and good data perspective, there are the two elements which I have been talking about last 10 minutes, there is enough in each of your organizations to do a simple thinking, taking a step back, and how can I make sure that good data is something which we are able to generate, and we feel that we were not able to do it, or we are able to do it. Example could be why we could not do it, or example could be we are able to do it and we did this in the last couple of years.
Maybe, for example, for us, we measure extraction efficiency, right? How well or how fast you're able to process a specific candidate and the number of vacancies, right?
Okay.
So we started with that, and we basically measured cycle time and percentage vacancy closed and all that. So it was a good insight, and it told us whether we were doing well or not. In some cases we didn't, and in some cases we did.
Okay.
The thing is, we also didn't measure the in-between processes as we were processing specific candidates, right? So what happened was we really weren't sure what was the reason for the delay of cycle time for specific cases.
Okay.
Right, so the initial one, okay, that's good, we have cycle time, right? It managed expectations, leaders understood how long it would take to actually hire on average.
Mm-hmm.
But we also were asked the question, why in some cases it took longer? But because we didn't have the data points, we basically didn't know why. So it answers the first question of how was it more relevant, but at the same time, we also didn't have the data to actually say where was the source of the lag and what were the reasons. Although intuitively, we did say that a lot of leaders in a very changing organization couldn't define the specific candidate they were absolutely looking for despite the job description. But that was an inference. It wasn't actually supported by data.
Okay. 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 I think it is a very good example. So I always say basically that and from HR perspective, there are two aspects to it. One is transactional HR, we call it small HR, and one is the strategic HR, which is the big HR. The transactional HR is leave, payroll, time, which your organization will implement in some manner, and that will happen. And if it is inaccurate, actually immediately the second day it will come out. So that means you really do not have to give a lot of argument. That system probably is in place in your organization, and you can only modernize it a bit. You can't do a great invention to it. Of course, there are elements to it, but it is difficult. What is difficult to measure is strategic HR, and what makes an impact, which is employee productivity, and which is talent, recruitment, compensation, succession, performance, learning. And you basically take an example of recruitment actually. I think this is a common inference towards the end when we talk about we had great job descriptions that you mentioned, and we are going to the market and hiring, and there was a time lag. So what could be the reason for it? Now we are taking an inference. If we are able to give an inference which all different people who are responsible for recruitment process are convicted about, probably that is the answer. And how to make that conviction happen probably is again depends upon the good data. I give an example that there are two aspects to it. I read one of the article actually. I think it was one of the big four companies, one of the big I think $1 billion companies, where they mentioned that we made a big breakthrough in recruitment, wherein the entire population who applied for any particular job in that organization, there were about 10% people who were first level screened. The remaining 90% of them got a response why they were not shortlisted. That means you have a recruitment campaign in your organization, which is typically, I would say, basically it's a branding. And you are making your organization look good, basically. It is the easiest. Branding to customers is very difficult. Branding to employees is the easiest, actually, because everybody is interested and very easy, basically, that they look for it. And it is the industry, and they would be in different industry segments. So I'm saying recruitment is the best branding. And when you are making a recruitment campaign, people are applying. And if 10 people apply and only one person gets shortlisted, there has to be a message that goes out to those 9 people why they were not shortlisted. And trust me, if we are doing that, that is the first step we take towards generating a good data. Because then we are saying that what is it that we are looking in that 1% which gets shortlisted. And that is one starting aspect of it. And when we are discussing actually and how are we making it happen, looking at it from a simplification perspective, if an email has to go out, if there is a simple framework that we design in the beginning, apart from the job JDs, what are we looking at, what are we not looking at? And that not looking at is a template again, which is anti-JD, and that is basically probably outsourced to an organization, 5 people organization, which can handle probably that everybody who's applying, and if they are not up to that mark, what is it basically that goes out? That is the first step. And the second step would be basically that when we are shortlisting those people actually from a JD perspective, which is the 10%, how are we making that particular screening process simplified? If we do not make the screening process simplified, the data will get lost. So, and that simplification process probably could be that the way everybody is screening, that person is able to put that data. Now, that is one pain problem basically every organization has, and the solution is lying with every single organization. That means you know that what will work in your organization when you are screening somebody, and what is the answer that that person basically should put in the system before they are shortlisting or not shortlisting. And I think if probably we have a simple process of putting once in a quarter review from a recruitment talent acquisition process owner perspective, that why it is happening and why not happening, I think we will have that data generated from that feedback perspective, which could be automated.